How's it going? My name is Brody Springer, and this class is for Professor Zhang, and this is Management 310. And we were given a prompt scenario to use Gemini and AI to figure out and work with the framework driver. And I will show you how I use Gemini to work with this problem. So the scenario starts with your rich uncle heard you were studying finance. He shows you financials for two gaming startups and says, I'll invest 100K in whichever one you recommend. You have 48 hours. And then for the define and discover, they gave us all of the startup. We have Mobile Games Incorporated, which is startup A, and then Console Studio, which is startup B. And so if we go to Google Gemini here real quick, um, I put in the prompt, and so it gave us a little analysis on it. But I asked Gemini to act like a business analyst who knows Python well, use the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And then I asked it to draft the Python code to help with the investment decision. Here's what it gave me. We have startup A, which is the mobile games. Includes revenue for the first. We have 3 years: year one, year two, and then year three. Um, for startup A, it looks like it have a total net income of minus 200,000, minus 150,000, minus 50,000. Looks like they are a net loss of income. If we look up startup B here, this is also the information that they gave us. We have a net income of negative 100,000, negative 50,000, and then for the third year we have 50,000. So um, let's see here. So that's for the D, the driver for the framework, and then if we move on to R, which is represent, it was that asked us to compute scores for each startup based on the framework. If we go back to Gemini, I gave the AI a prompt that says please compute scores based on the following framework above and explain what these scores actually mean when trying to find the right company to invest in. They give us a little document here. And startup A, mobile games, startup B, the console studio. If we look here for mobile games, we have a 5 in growth for a growth rate, shows an explosive growth rate of 200% and 167%, while startup B's growth is stable but slower with not 20% to 17% range. Also, startup A also has a great user growth, while startup B does not, has a 2 out of 5. And then if we notice here, time to break even, the time to get their what they put in um, is 1 for startup A, and for startup B is pretty high actually, 5 out of 5. See here what they said. Startup B is actually profitable and cash flow is positive. Startup A is still operating at significant loss. And if we move on to implement I for driver, we need to find an analysis, all the information that we got from AI. I gave it a little prompt and I said, I see the startup A has an incredible revenue growth, but its time to break even is at its lowest. What we see right here, time to break even, their score was a 1. And I said, is there a reason why this is happening to startup A? Also, users' growth metrics for startup B is pretty low. Why do we think that? And it gave us a great prompt here. It said the reason the reason for the time to break even for startup A could be is that they were startup A is likely driven by mass spending on marketing, advertising and user acquisitions campaigns. So they're burning money super fast. They are out of debt at the beginning of the company, and it takes them a while to break even. Um, but let's see, it says here that the low score for time break even reflects this high risk, but it could bring a high reward approach. And then for the second part of my question was why startup B has a low user growth. It gave us that 3 little subcategories: higher barrier to entry. Um, New companies entering the game is really hard to get started because there's so many, and gaming is a um, wide variety of companies. So to get going is hard. So acquiring a new user requires them to either own a specific console or purchase a game outright. They have a really good game, you own a really good console that people are knowing. Niche market is the second. The console gaming audience, while is dedicated and highly valuable, is shown, is much smaller than the global mobile gaming market. Not many people want. It has to be a good game for people to buy. If it's a bad game, then they won't get as many people buying it. And then for the third one, it says slower product cycle. Console games often take years to develop, meaning user growth doesn't happen continuously. People don't know that their game is working or is good. So once the news spreads, then um, the console growth will get higher. Um, then that is for I. If we go to validate, V for the driver framework, I gave AI a prompt and I said I'm trying to validate my research on which company that I'm investing into. Is there anything critical I'm missing about the two companies, and what are the final takeaways between the two? Let's see here. They gave me four subcategories: valuation. The most significant missing piece is the company's valuation. Startup A is valued at a premium high because of its growth, but startup B is considered a safer bet, or is startup B considered a safer bet? Um, you could be buying a great company like Startup B at an overinflated price, but we know that their growth rate or their time to break even is high. The current runaway, they're making money now instead of risking for Startup A, and then for let's see, competitive moat, which makes each company's business model defensible. For Startup A, incredible user growth from a unique product or just a large marketing budget that a competitor could outspend. So they're spending money. Market A or not Market A, Startup A is spending money, and they're slowly trying to make money, but their overall profit is low. But Startup B is um, they're starting. They don't have many users, but they're making profit, and that's kind of pretty much all that matters at the beginning of at the beginning of the company. And then for final takeaways for the company to decide whether I want to invest in Startup A or Startup B. For Startup A, the pros: explosive growth in revenue and users. This is a bet that the company can dominate in its market and eventually turn its scales into a profitable enterprise. Um, although they don't have profitable income right now, the growth is crazy for the company, and so um, there could be a chance to make a lot of money in the future. And then obviously the cons we saw is that their cash, they burn through cash at the beginning of the company a lot for advertising or other developmental costs. And then for startup B, um, the pros: proven probability and positive cash flow. This is a sign of strong business model that is self-sustaining and less reliant on external funding. They're making money now, and um, they're not burning through cash a lot. If we see here, their revenue growth rate is not bad. They're 3 out of 5 stars, which is pretty good. And their current runaway and their time to break even, they're in the profits. The revenue predictability is high. They're making profits. Cons is slower, more conservative growth. They don't have the size growth as Startup A, which is 5. Startup B is 3. And if we go to E, which is the evolve part of the driver framework, um, I gave it a prompt. I said, "Could you calculate the following ratios for me on both companies and provide a report explaining what these ratios mean?" And unfortunately, I think it only came up with one, which is the profit margin. We can see that um, Startup A, their profit margin is it's all in negative, but it's slowly the growth rate is slowly gaining. We got negative 200%, negative 50, negative 6.25%, which means it's continually. Year 4 will probably be a profit year for them. And then Startup B is at first, the first 2 years, they weren't making a lot, negative 20% and negative 8%. And then that third year, they actually made 7.4% was their profit margin. Um, let's see here, and that's about it. In my opinion, I think I'm more the riskier type, so I think that I should go with startup A, because although they did burn through a lot of cash, their growth rate is through the walls. Um, 5 growth rate. They have a whole bunch of users. Although the time to break even is slow, it'll get there. That year 4 will get a lot more money, and then that score will go up. Although the score for startup B is a lot higher, they're not making as much money, and their user growth rate is not as high. Um, it was very helpful to use AI to work through this problem. Um, it is a little hard at first to understand what we're doing, but as we work through the peer AI, it'll be more effective when trying to figure out these frameworks for this class. Thank you.